Evening, folks. Brian here, Geomagnetic Earth Watch on Saturday, May 18, 2024. Hope you're all well. Have to start making some adjustments pretty soon. I'm going to title this video, When They Start Asking. And pretty soon, the masses will. Now, if you're one of the very, very few with the observations, the knowledge, the discernment, intellect, wisdom, that you try and educate people, open their minds, forewarn people to prepare, for the most part, you are ridiculed and ignored, including by friends and families, neighbors, co-workers, etc. You're even laughed at. Then when events, the birthing pains, start in increasing frequency and magnitude, people are going to be pounding down on your doors looking for answers. But when you struggle just to prepare your family, even with resistance from some, the burden of suddenly trying to explain to people what is going on is going to crush you. I try sometimes. So, for example, if you were to introduce the subject of the geomagnetic excursion and the weakening of our protective magnetic field to people, and the harmful effects on both the planet and its inhabitants, all life forms, they have no idea what you're saying. I tried it on the neighbor a couple of years ago, down the road from me. He's a former school vice principal, an ex-RCMP, that's Royal Canadian Mounted Police up here in Canada. He didn't even know what our magnetosphere was. I had to stop. If you go even further to try and introduce the subject of our binary system, they're going to scoff at you and say such things as many people do. Well, I can't see anything. Why is there no pictures? Yet the vibrations of changes from its effects are beginning to be felt and will be wrapping up. And there's not going to be any mental or psychological preparedness, no practical preparation, never mind spiritual, because people have become so disconnected, and the evil influence that's here already through our systems, our government, our schools, is not allowing us, our children, to learn from Scripture. There is no connection in the first place. So what I say now is exactly what Mike from around the world is right now currently talking about on Nomadic Nation. This isn't, it is by no means plagiarism. Because my mind and heart's always on the same path anyway. But I am going to echo what he just finished saying. People who have tried to warn people are either in prison or in their graves. They have been terminated. Which is why sometimes I speak cryptically. But there is one other source that has its own playlists. And it outlines everything that is going to happen. It doesn't need your money. It does not feed off of pure porn. It's not put in place by the government to deny the existence of Sal. It's all here. It's all here. The most reliable playlist. And he's not salty. It tells you that the nations will fall into anguish and perplexity at the roaring and the tossing of the seas and the changing tides. It tells you that there will be blood and fire from the earth below and columns of smoke. It tells you that there will be wonders and terrors from the heavens above. It explains it all. It tells you the earthquakes and the great earthquakes in diverse places, and so too the pestilence and the famines. It puts everything more or less into a chronological order, everything that's going to happen before the arrival of the Antichrist. But you cannot cherry pick what you want to believe and leave everything else behind to set up your own timeline of belief. But it has to be read with an open heart and open mind. You have to immerse yourself in it. You have to want to. Before the beginnings of sorrows and the earth pains. And by making reference to Scripture, I don't draw any attention until the rise of the beast. I don't draw any attention from the government, the men in black. But don't wait until your heart fails you from fear. And then you immerse yourself in Scripture. There was once a family member, an in-law of mine. She lost everything, all her material wealth, and with that, social standing. Then and only then did she turn to her faith. When she came back into the money, that faith went back into the closet. Because money, material wealth, and social standings are more important. That is their calling. Now again, I echo what Mike from around the world is seeing right now. It's not from plagiarism. It's just that I see the same. But I had to start listening to his messages in order to protect myself and my family. As someone once said, as long as I have a low subscriber count, I'm not going to get the attention. That's the way I like it. And as far as I'm concerned, most of the people aren't awake, and they're not going to wake up. It doesn't matter how much you try. And also, as I've already mentioned a few times, maybe the past year, people like me, the independent researchers, we're no longer going to have access to which I use and show you on a daily basis. I'm not going to have access to the satellite feeds, earthquake reporting, the buoys, and everything else that tells me how our Earth is changing. I'm not going to be able to show you the heat and how our planet is responding to the binary system. And curiously enough, I don't know why, the refineries all up and down the west coast of the United States, from Seattle, San Francisco, Los Angeles, are all dark. They're not showing any heat. Not from the flare stacks. Nothing for the past couple of days. I'm curious if they are still in operation or have they just finished turning things off for those areas. Anyway, there is the binary black star system with its companions, whose orbit does intersect with ours on a timeline, also bringing with it its asteroids and or dislodging the asteroids from the asteroid belt within our system. And this is what's going to be happening without any forewarning and preparedness. These are just some of the signs from the heavens above. There's going to be no government warning, no media explanation. The only ones left untouched and uncensored are those put in place to deny the existence of planet, and who also denies God's doing. The answer, of course, is the star wormwood. And when you understand the gravitational and electromagnetic influence of our binary star, then you will see that this explains the roaring and the tossing of the seas, the changing tides, the rising heat, the magma events, the fires, and all the signs in the heavens above. All of these things which must happen before the arrival of the Antichrist. And they know of this incoming system. See, I have to tell you something that happened in 1957. In the year 1957, there was a record number of recorded sunspots, 855 sunspots. On December 24th and December 25th, there were 503 sunspots, which terrified the scientists. You need to understand what I just said. For an example, today's sunspot count is 10. For a 2-day period in December 1957, there were 503. It scared the crap out of them. NASA was hastily formed because of that event in July 1958. Before then, there was a rush. It wasn't a race. It was a rush between Russia and the United States to send their first satellites into space. You see, there was a burst from the sun that struck the moon. So hot that it caused the rocks to melt into glass. That was the reason why NASA was formed in the race to the moon, to get up there quickly to see what happened. Two prominent scientists suddenly died. This is beginning to happen a lot now. This brought Russia and the United States closer together after the Cold War in a cooperative effort, which continues to this day. The cooperation between Russia and the United States sharing the rocket flights up to the International Space Station during the times of the wars and the rumors of wars. Shortly afterwards, in the late 1970s, Pioneer 10, Pioneer 11 were sent up there to we'll take a look around, get a triangulation of something, try and establish a timeline. So what do we look out for? An escalation in the orchestrated distraction in Ukraine. Sudden material shortages to speed up the construction of their bunkers. This has already happened. A sudden shortage of concrete and rebar. Relocation of government services. The reason why Denver sucks is because that is the relocated point for the CIA domestic headquarters. That's why Denver sucks. I'm actually going to change this for a separate video. Except to say, what you see happening on the other side of your country or the world, it's going to start happening to you. If you see both tornadoes happening, devastating, and you don't get them, you're going to get them. You're going to experience things you never even thought of. Magma events. Sudden, unexplained coastal events. I'm going to check my security cameras. One moment. It's okay. He didn't trip my thunder flashes and paraflares. And the next point is the M60s. It's all right. Me paranoid? And as I've been saying for the past couple of years, we are first going to see these events happen where the Earth's crust is thinnest. Oceanic crust. This is exactly what Mike from Around the World says. Major volcanic event. Ocean volcanic event. Huge, big. If it's close enough to the coast. For example, the Explorer Seamount off the coast of Vancouver Island, 2,000 earthquakes in one day. That has the potential for being a magma event. Never mind the tsunami. As an example. So I'm not quite sure how I'm going to proceed from this point on. I believe in forewarning. Without the stupid fear porn. Oh, you have to be at this elevation. Oh, you have to be at that elevation. It's 1,166 pages. It takes time to get through. And all the answers are there. All the signs are there. As well as other signs that different people give us. Once again, I invite you to put aside your differences what you think about people, and look again at that movie, Leave the World Behind. Forget about what you think about the Obamas. Forget about the racial overtones. Forget about the obvious false narrative that they want you to believe. And look at all the underlying signs, plain sight. The red celestial body behind the satellite, closer to the Earth than the sun. Carlos Ferrada said that Hercules, when it does get closer, will be approximately 14 million kilometers from Earth. In comparison, the sun is 150 million kilometers from the Earth. They did that very cleverly. They didn't make it so obvious, but they did make it obvious for you to see. The mural of the ocean waves in the bedroom in 3 separate scenes. In scene one, the waves are this height, relatively calm. Second scene, the waves are this height, getting rougher. Third scene, as the actors were standing in the bedroom, the waves are here, very rough. In anguish and perplexity of the roaring and the tossing of the seas, the gravitational pull influenced Earth wobble. The disorientated deer who get confused because they align their bodies to the magnetic field lines, north and south. When at rest, they were confused. When you have a succession of large solar blasts, maybe the same as the ones in December in 1957, one after another, they're going to become disorientated. The same with the flamingos that landed in the swimming pool. And as the black actor said, the truth is much scarier. And everything else about that movie was about a solar impact. I digress. How did I start this talk? The same way they did that movie, cryptically. They, of course, want you to believe it was a cyber attack, but they were actually telling you the truth and showing you all these visualizations. If it was a cyber attack, why would they show you 3 times a red celestial body close to the Earth? If it was a cyber attack, why would they change the painting of the waves in the bedroom horizon? And I can go on. People have been exterminated for telling the truth. Robert S. Harrington, who NASA appointed to track the system, who died very suddenly from the sudden onset of throat cancer. You don't all of a sudden get throat cancer and about 3 days later you die. It's not how it works. Pay attention to the orchestrated distractions. Your government officials relocating, your government bodies relocating very close to the NORAD Space Command Center, Cheyenne Mountain, where a certain YouTuber lives. Because that's his safe point, destination. Prepare for the sudden weather impacts. Southern United States, Texas, was forewarned 10 years ago. The tornadoes was forewarned many days before it happened. The fires was forewarned 3 weeks before it happened. The fires were forewarned 10 years before it happened. Because in Joel chapter 2, verse 28, and in the after, I will pour out my spirit upon the world. I shall give your sons and daughters prophecy, your old men will dream dreams, and your young men will have visions. Take that for what you will. My daughter, who's autistic, told me of one of her dreams. She said all the volcanoes around us, and we have lots, were erupting. And of the mountain across the lake from which we can see through our windows, all the trees were gone, they were burnt, and lava was oozing out from the top. And she said, we were being bombed. She couldn't describe it. Could have been lava bombs. Could have been asteroids. In another dream, she told me that when people walked outside, they instantly started to burn. Because of the weakened magnetic field, allowing increased levels of deadly ultraviolet C radiation coming in. And before the orchestrated Ukraine destruction, she told me of the nightmares of nuclear wars coming. I shall give your sons and daughters prophecy. I suggest people start waking up and doing their own research and start paying attention to what's going on in our world. That sudden, unexpected volcanic eruption in Lake Nicaragua was not unexpected, not to me, because as I said, I've been watching it. Just like the others on the northeast corner of Sulawesi, Halmahera, Ibu, Dukono, and more. We'll save all that for another video. 28 minutes, a little bit too long.